She said it softly, like she was protecting me from something I couldn't see yet. We'd be better off as friends. I don't want to hurt you. And somehow, that was the exact moment I realized she already had. I didn't argue. I didn't ask questions. I just nodded, like people do when they sense that pushing back would only make them look smaller. Okay, I said. Her name is Sloane Harrington, and if you saw us together a week before that night, you would have assumed we were solid. We lived in Greenwich, Connecticut, the kind of place where relationships look perfect from the outside because everything else already does. My name is Carter Whitfield. I run a private wealth advisory firm that caters to families who don't like to talk about money publicly, but expect you to understand exactly how much they have. Sloane worked in interior design, high-end projects, quietly expensive clients, the kind of work that never gets posted online, but always gets talked about in rooms that matter. We met at a charity auction. She laughed at something I said that wasn't even that funny. And I remember thinking that she had a way of making people feel like they mattered more than they actually did. At the time, I thought that was kindness. I didn't realize it was something else entirely. We dated for 14 months. No dramatic fights. No public arguments. No obvious warning signs. Which is exactly why what she said that night didn't make sense. Is there someone else? I asked. She paused, just long enough to make the answer louder than any words she could have used. No, she said, and I nodded again, because technically she hadn't lied. Not in a way I could prove. The next morning, I went to work like nothing had changed. Because in my world, nothing is allowed to look unstable. But something had shifted, not in my schedule, not in my routine, in the way silence started to feel heavier than usual. A week passed. No messages. No accidental check-ins. No late night, just thinking about you text that people sometimes send when they're unsure of their own decisions. She was clean about it. Precise. And that's when it started to bother me. Because people who leave cleanly usually already have somewhere else to land. Before we go further, I want you to think about this for a second. If someone ends things with you this calmly, this carefully, without leaving any emotional loose ends, would you trust that it's truly over, or would you start looking for what they're not saying? I didn't go looking for answers immediately. That's not how I operate. But I did something else. I paid attention. 2 weeks after the breakup, I was invited to a private client dinner at Belhaven Club, the kind of event where conversations are quiet, but everything being said carries weight. I almost didn't go, but in my line of work, absence gets noticed more than presence. So I showed up, and that's when I saw her. Sloane wasn't alone. She was standing next to Reed Calloway, a name that, in Greenwich, doesn't require an introduction. Old money, family office, the kind of financial background that makes my entire career look like a well-executed entry point. They weren't holding hands. They weren't doing anything obvious. But proximity has a language, and I understood it instantly. She saw me, and for a moment, something in her expression shifted. Not guilt, not regret, recognition, like she knew this exact moment was inevitable. Reed turned slightly, following her line of sight. His eyes met mine. And then he smiled, not arrogantly, not mockingly, just calmly, like a man who wasn't threatened. We exchanged brief acknowledgments. Nothing more. Because in rooms like that, you don't create scenes. You create impressions. I left early that night. Not because I was overwhelmed, because I'd seen enough. The next morning, I got a message from Sloane. I didn't expect to see you there. Of course she didn't. I stared at the message longer than I should have. Then I typed back. It's a small town. She replied almost immediately. I hope that didn't make things uncomfortable for you. That was the moment something inside me clicked. Not anger, not sadness, clarity, not at all, I wrote. And that was the truth. Because discomfort requires uncertainty. And I wasn't uncertain anymore. Over the next few days, I started connecting things I hadn't paid attention to before. The way she had become slightly more distant the last month. The way she stopped talking about future plans. The way she started choosing her words more carefully, like she was already managing an ending I wasn't aware of yet. It wasn't sudden. It was strategic. And for the first time, I stopped seeing the breakup as something emotional and started seeing it as something calculated. Reed Calloway wasn't just anyone. He was a better option, more established, more connected, less risk, and Sloane wasn't the kind of person who made impulsive decisions. She made upgrades. A month later, I heard through a client that Reed and Sloane were seeing each other seriously. That phrasing stayed with me, not because it hurt, because of how familiar it sounded. That's exactly how she used to describe us. Before everything shifted, before we go any further, I want your honest opinion. If you realize someone didn't leave you because you were wrong for them, but because they found something better, would you confront them, or would you let it go and protect your dignity? I didn't confront her, not because I was above it, because I understood something most people don't. Closure isn't something you get from the other person. It's something you build from what you're willing to accept. And I had already accepted enough. 3 months later, I saw them again. Different event, same dynamic. But this time, something was off. Not obvious, not dramatic, subtle. Reed was engaged in conversation across the room. Sloane stood alone for a moment longer than she should have. And when our eyes met again, her expression wasn't the same as before. There was something else there now. Something quieter. Something unsettled. She walked over. "Hey," she said. "Hey." A pause. "I've been meaning to reach out," she added. I nodded slightly. "But I didn't," I said. She gave a small, almost embarrassed smile. "Yeah." Another pause. "I just wanted to say, I hope you're doing well." "I am," I said. And again, that was the truth. She looked like she wanted to say more. But she didn't. Because some conversations only exist if both people still need them. And I didn't. We stood there for a moment longer. Two people who once shared everything, now reduced to polite silence in a room full of strangers. Then Reed called her name from across the room. She glanced back, then at me, and for a split second, I saw it. Not regret, not longing, awareness, the kind that comes too late. She turned and walked back to him, and that was it. No dramatic ending, no confrontation, no explanation, just the quiet understanding that sometimes people don't leave because something is broken. They leave because they believe something else will serve them better. And sometimes they're right. And sometimes, a week later, I heard they were no longer together. No details, no reasons, just over. I didn't reach out, because whatever lesson she needed to learn was never mine to teach.